look at that. Isn't that a great layout? You son of a gun!
This campaign is no good.
No good!
Darren and Larry, the original Mad Men on Bewitched.
You're watching Connect with me. I'm John Malos, and welcome to the program live on the showroom floor on Comcast Channel 187 and 43.6. Today is the Focus on Business. We're talking American Ambulance. Your phone calls are important because we have the general manager of American Ambulance in our studio today. His name is Todd Valeri. We want your input on what you think about the response times. How do you rate the performance of American Ambulance? 265-4331. We're back with our guest in just a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
And today, of course, the focus is on business, and it's my pleasure to have the general manager of American Ambulance in, and we want you to call in and, give us your input on what you think about American Ambulance. Have you ever had to call 911 for an ambulance service? Well, 265-4331 is our number. If you want to call 911, you can. Let's hope you don't have to. If you're in an emergency situation, whether you're having a hard time breathing, you think you're having a heart attack, maybe a stroke, how do you rate the performance? What's the response time? Last week, I had the pleasure of going on a ride-along with a couple of paramedics from American Ambulance. Let's go to that videotape right now, and I'll show you exactly what I am talking about. And it was my pleasure to ride along with Louis and Jessica. They are with American Ambulance. There is the front of the building right there, the flag waving. They're located at Tulare and 41. That is corporate headquarters. There is Louis driving one of the ambulances. There is Jessica right there. These are paramedics. They're going and rushing to a scene, to a patient at a nursing facility that was having some problems. Now remember, each paramedic is designed and equipped and really trained to do different jobs. One of the paramedics might be taking vital signs, another might be taking CPR or drawing blood or setting up an IV. Remember, American Ambulance covers 2 counties, Fresno and Kings. It's the only service provided in those 2 counties, the only ambulance service. They have nearly 600 employees, 100 vehicles, 9 different stations. Mercedes, by the way, makes those vehicles. Live in our studio right now is Todd Valeri. He's the general manager of American Ambulance. He's here to take your phone calls, 265-4331. He's here to answer your questions on this Focus on Business Day on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno, 265-4331. Back with our guest, Todd Valeri, in just a moment.
Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're the save energy, save time, save money place. The Energy Star qualified #1 rated high-efficiency Cabrio from Whirlpool Place. You heard right. Right now, save big on select Whirlpool Cabrio laundry pairs and pay no interest when paid in full within 6 months. At the hometown low price, think outside the big box place. Since 1951, Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're working hard to be your place.
If you've ever had an emergency, you've been in one of those situations where you need to call 911, whether it was a fire or you need the police, or in this case, you might need an ambulance. Heaven forbid, you don't need that, but if you're having a hard time breathing or whatever, you call 911, and who's going to pick up? A dispatcher. They're going to dispatch that ambulance out to your various location, whatever, if you're at work, if you're at home, wherever you might be, at a friend's house, wherever that emergency situation is. American Ambulance covers 2 counties, Fresno and Kings. It's the only game in town. The general manager is here, Todd Valeri. Good to see you.
Good to
How
see
are
you.
you?
Yeah, excellent.
Hey, thanks for being a guest here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you. So you're the only game in town. You kind of have a monopoly on the 2 counties, Fresno and Kings. How did that happen? Did you have to go to the Board of Supervisors for that, or what?
Well, John, it's a fairly detailed process, and I'll give you the
short answer.
The short answer, of course.
Okay.
In most counties, there is an exclusive provider, and the reason being is people in their time of need are a poor comparison shopper. They're not in a situation to evaluate one service versus the next, and it's described in the Health and Safety Code here in California to allow counties, not cities, but counties, to have jurisdiction on who provides that ambulance service. So the counties are charged with the responsibility to issue a request for proposal and receive various bids or proposals from companies, evaluate those relative to the cost of service, the quality of service, to make sure that the community is best served.
So it wouldn't make sense to have 2 or 3 companies involved. Just the one would suffice. Right?
Well, in most counties, that's the case. And just a point of clarification, John, here in Fresno County, we serve the majority of the county, but there are other providers in some of the other communities. For example, Kalinga, Sanger, Selma, Kingsburg all have their own service. In the case of Selma, they contract to American Ambulance to provide those services on their behalf. But
so you have the smaller companies or the smaller cities maybe contract with you guys, right?
or provide the services themselves.
Right.
And
So
the
it's almost like an independent contractor, is that right? In a way?
I mean, you could say that.
To simplify
yeah,
it.
Yeah, sure. In Kings County, we are the exclusive provider. And this is very common throughout the state and actually throughout the nation, that this model is what works.
More efficient?
It's more efficient and more effective. Our response times are monitored by a independent committee appointed by the Board of Supervisors who scrutinize every aspect of our service.
Let's take a call here. Good morning. You're on Connect with Me. How are you? Hello? Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Quickly, what's your question?
I have a question for the other guy.
Todd Valeri. Yeah, he's the general manager of American Ambulance. Go ahead.
Yeah. The question is, I'm a veteran, and I have a few problems, and I have to use that ambulance service. Every time I call, and they come and pick me up, instead of going down Clinton, they take the long right route. They go down to 180 and go all the way around, and then they put that charge on my bill. Why is that? Why don't they just go straight down Clinton, which is closer? I live at Peach and Huntington, and Peach turns into Clinton. Why don't they go straight down Clinton to the VA instead of taking 180 all the way around the other way?
That's a good question. Our policies are very clear that we're to take the most direct route. And in fact, for some payers, they'll go back and recalculate our route of travel to make sure that they only pay based on that most direct route. In your particular circumstance, I'm more than happy to look into this directly, because it sounds like it's very specific to your situation. And John, I don't know if we have the ability to get his information off air. Or
what's your number?
Sure.
Over there.
Well, you can always call our direct office at 443-5900, and I'm more than happy to have this investigated and give you a thorough response.
443-5900. I appreciate your call and your concern, and thanks for watching the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
absolutely thank you for your service to our country. And we do certainly appreciate our veterans. And, a little plug here, John, we give hiring preference to veterans here at American Ambulance.
That's great. That's great. Well, that number one more time is
443-5900.
Okay, and if that last caller is still watching the program, call American Ambulance, ask for Todd Valeri. I'm sure he can straighten that situation out for you if it's a billing question or whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
I want to turn you to the monitor, Todd, and
Sure.
I want to ask you about the Safe Lift program here, because, you know, when these paramedics are called out to the scene, they don't know what the situation is going to be. It's like putting blinders on. When you get there, you could end up lifting somebody, having to lift somebody, giving CPR. You don't know what the situation is. So let's roll the videotape and check out what we're going to see here and explain what we're looking at on the monitor here. Obviously, this is one of your ambulances pulling up to the scene. But what are we looking at specifically in this video here?
Well, this is actually a training video we use internally to demonstrate the proper way to lift a patient and maneuver the patient over to the gurney. In many circumstances, we just have 2 rescuers on scene, and they need to be able to handle the situation.
Now, when you say the proper way, is that to protect the paramedics and the patient?
Well, absolutely both, in both cases. And our policies are very clear on how we test our employees, pre-employment physical testing as well as ongoing physical testing. But even the strongest back can't compensate for poor technique. And we've developed various lifting procedures that all of our employees should be following, and it doesn't matter who you're partnered with that day. By communicating in the same way, by using safe procedures, we not only assure that our employees are injury-free, but we're also doing our best to make sure that our patients don't suffer any injury.
Is there a technique for going up and down the stairs, as we saw in that last piece of video there, and what is it?
Sure. It depends on the nature of the lift. If the patient is on a backboard, for instance, we've immobilized their spine, or another piece of equipment, we might need to either get more personnel involved, or we might need to follow a different procedure. And it's very technical, John, but each of those different lifts are choreographed, they're practiced, and they're monitored.
And the paramedics, they have to go through training for that.
They absolutely do. And it's much more than the clinical aspects of care that we provide. How
long is the training for the paramedics? Is it months?
To be a paramedic, it varies by which program they've gone through, 18 months up to 2 years to be fully licensed and able to go out and run calls.
And even then, there's no guarantee they're going to be hired as paramedics.
Well, that's true, but in our particular case, we generally promote from within, and we sponsor our own emergency medical technicians, or EMTs, which is a fairly short training, and the EMTs primarily drive and assist the paramedics. But as I said, we sponsor and pay for the education for our EMTs to go on to paramedic school. Occasionally, we'll hire from outside the company, but
but mostly within. Mostly within. It's a very important job. One of the most important jobs. We've got to take a quick break here. We're going to come back with Todd Valeri, but certainly one of the most important jobs anywhere in the country is being a paramedic and dealing with a life and death situation, showing up at the scene and not knowing what you're going to confront at that particular time. We're back with your phone calls. American Ambulance is here today, 265-4331. We're back in a jiffy.
When you need to talk to a private eye.
You want to be talking to Jim Rockford.
That's right. He's the one to talk to.
They don't know who you're talking to.
Rockford.
He's got everyone talking.
What kind of lowlife is he?
Takes out half-page ads in a phone book.
I seem to recall the phrase, moderately intelligent private detective.
You have a smart mouth. You're right, I do. But I'm working on changing that.
Jim Rockford is all the talk on MeTV.
He's something else, all right.
Weekdays at 11, 10 Central on MeTV.
The focus today is on business. The focus is on American Ambulance. And what we're talking about is an ambulance showing up at your residence in a life and death situation. Now, when they get to the scene there, they could do any number of projects, right, Todd? I mean, you got 2 on scene right there. So you could have one administered medication. You could have another setting up an IV or advanced airways situation. You could have one doing bandaging, checking vital signs, doing CPR, checking that the medications are the proper medications that you need to give. But all of those are medical issues. And you've got to be properly trained to do that. Isn't that right?
Of course, John. And
just to set up an IV, for goodness sake, and not just anybody can do that.
When people think about paramedics and what they do, they often think about the advanced life support care that our paramedics provide. Certainly cases of critical heart attacks, difficulty breathing, trauma. Those are the images that are conjured when you think about paramedics. But so many of our calls are simply related to situations that our patients just can't deal with, and they may be social in nature. We have certainly seen a reduction in mental health services available in our community. We're often called to assist in those situations. So when you say we never know what we're going to see when we arrive, that's really the case. We may have something reported to our dispatch center that turns out to be something completely different.
Speaking of which, the dispatch center went out there, and when your guy Edgar took me out there the other day, and it was very interesting behind the scenes. Let's go to the videotape and we'll show you what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And when you're talking about dispatch, when you first place the call, that's the dispatch center right there. That's the outside of the building. I don't want to give the specific location because I don't know if that's proper, but this is inside the building where when you pick up the phone and you call 911, one of these people that you see in the video here may in fact be answering that telephone call, that response that you're going to need. And from this point on, you're talking about response time, which is what, Todd?
Response time is measured from the point that we pick up the phone and receive some basic information about the call.
But that time is anywhere from what time to what time? Say 6 to 10 minutes?
I'll give you the full interval if I can.
Okay.
So it's from the point that we pick up the phone and we determine the location of the call and the nature of the call to the point that one of our crews arrives on scene. And while our average time is around 5 minutes, we have a very strict responsibility to be at your doorstep within 10 minutes, 95% of the time here in Fresno,
Otherwise,
the Fresno urban area. Otherwise, there's
penalties?
There are fines and penalties associated with that. And as I said, our response times are monitored by a committee appointed by the Board of Supervisors. On behalf of our community, to make sure that we're doing our job to the absolute best of our ability in meeting the expectation of our County Board of Supervisors, our health department, and ultimately our patients.
Right. Now, in the video, you saw the dispatchers there fully trained in being a dispatcher, obviously.
Sure.
They have a bank of monitors in front of them. They're working on a keyboard. They have a headset on. So when they call up, and I was there, and I was there when a woman was calling in. She thought she was having a stroke. Mm-hmm. Your dispatcher was very calm, very calming voice, very soothing voice, did not panic, said, okay, ma'am, here's what I want you to do. Unlock the door, stay on the phone with me until they get there, blah, 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 blah. Tell me about the special training that these dispatchers go through, because they're looking at a bank of 3 to 4 to 5 monitors at one time, plus they're trying to calm a patient.
Right.
So what's the procedure? What's the training?
Well, first of all, the Communication Center is a Fresno County facility. It's the Fresno County Emergency Medical Services Communication Center. We not only, so American Ambulance is contracted by the county to also provide those services. We dispatch for Fresno County, Kings County, and Madera County for all ambulance services that are provided. We also
Those are American Ambulance employees there?
They are.
Okay.
They are. They're all American Ambulance employees who are actually doing the work with coordination and oversight by the County of Fresno. They have staff on site as well.
Right.
To,
but specifically, what do these dispatchers, what kind of training do they go through?
Well, it starts with a very selective recruitment process. Our last process for hiring, we had 101 applications, only interviewed 18 people and extended 9 job offers. So they're very, very special people who are
long hours?
Well,
it
can be, but the training they go through takes up to 6 months. And they're certified as emergency fire dispatchers and emergency medical dispatchers. And it's very extensive training to understand how the systems work. So when you call 911 and you're routed through our communication center, the dispatcher is not only going to be calming you, but go through a computer algorithm of asking a series of questions, which will determine what ambulance gets dispatched. Does the fire department co-respond on the call? Are there any pre-arrival medical instructions that we're going to provide? We may assist somebody with a childbirth or with CPR, all over the phone line. And it takes a very special person to be that lifeline over a telephone and to provide the instructions that are necessary to get somebody through the emergency.
So it's not a job that just anyone can walk into. It takes
Absolutely,
a special kind of a person to stay that calm.
Absolutely.
Under very trying circumstances.
And they're, even the most competent applicant, with all of the training, we still have over a 50% attrition rate within that 6-month period. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, it can be
difficult work.
So, have you ever cut anybody loose? Because they just couldn't handle the pressure. I mean,
Sure,
there's a lot of pressure.
well, it's generally a matter of self-selection. We're very active in coaching, mentoring, training, continual ongoing evaluation process. No dispatcher within that orientation period is left alone. They have a training officer at their side who is monitoring every conversation, every phone call to make sure that they're able to help somebody in their time of need.
Right. Todd Valeri is our guest here on Connect with Me. He's kind enough to take some time to come in today. Hey, your phone calls are important. The phone line is open, 265-4331. Any kind of questions you want to ask about American Ambulance, it's the one serving us right here in Fresno County. If you ever have a medical emergency, you know, Todd's company, American Ambulance, will be the one showing up at your doorstep. Let's hope that never happens. But occasionally it does, and you know, we need their services. So 265-4331. We're back in just a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
You know, American Ambulance doesn't only provide service on the ground, they provide service in the air. And Todd, you do have a helicopter. It's called Skylift, and I want our viewers to take a look at it as well. We're going to turn to the monitor one more time and take a look at some video that you guys provided for us. We didn't actually go up in a helicopter. You know, maybe one day I'll go up there and maybe shoot some videotape of that too. But here it is, the helicopter owned and operated by American Ambulance, is it?
Well, it's a joint venture between American Ambulance and Rogers Helicopters. We actually together own 3 helicopters. Rogers has a much larger fleet, of course. But we have 1 helicopter stationed here at the Fresno Air Terminal, 1 in Visalia at the airport, and 1 in reserve as needed. So,
where are these helicopters stationed right now?
Well, as I said, 1 in Fresno at the Fresno Air Terminal,
okay.
And it's staffed with a pilot, a nurse, and a paramedic. Their work is, the majority of their work is scene work, as in remote areas, motor vehicle accidents, where literally every second counts.
Remote areas, like you're talking the mountains?
The mountains, for instance, or out along the I-5 corridor. We also transfer patients outside of the area for specialty care.
Like Merced?
Well,
or perhaps Sacramento? Or
San Francisco, the Bay Area in general, and you know, these are very, very critical patients. They're the most sick and injured, and it's a life-saving service. We've been around for about 20 years doing this service in partnership with Rogers Helicopters. And
how critical is the Skylift to your organization and to the public?
Well, I think as far as our company is concerned, it's an augmentation of the medical transportation services we provide, and we provide the full continuum from non-emergency transport, 911 ground services, but the SkyLife Air Ambulance program saves lives, and it has for a long time. And there are many people who would not be here today if it wasn't for that service.
I want to ask you specifically and go back to those response times. I understand the average response time is about 6 minutes, give or take. I mean, I'm not going to hold you right to 6 minutes, but as a whole, you're the general manager of the company. Are you happy with those response times?
Am I happy? Well, of course I am. Does that mean that we don't continually look at our service and try and make improvement? Of course we do.
Right.
Very proud of our service record. I'd match that up against anybody in this country as far as public or private sector regarding response times.
Right.
And we do this because of the collaboration with the folks at the county health department, our fire department, first responders, and really have a system of care that works for our community.
Now I want to ask you, because within the last couple of weeks, Channel 47 here in town did a feature on American Ambulance on your Code 3 rules and what's appropriate to be driving through the streets of Fresno at a high rate of speed. Explain that.
Well, Code 3 is when the ambulance is responding with lights and siren, and it's reserved for only the most serious patients that we respond to. And our policies are actually much more restrictive than what the Highway Patrol places on us. For example, our policy is for a red light or stop sign, we're going to come to a complete stop and then roll through the intersection. We're allowed by the CHP to actually go through that intersection at 15 miles an hour. But, you know, it's a tremendous level of public trust that's placed in our paramedics and EMTs every day when they're responding to calls, and we need to get to the patient to the scene safely, and not cause any additional problems. So.
Right. We do have a phone call. Let's take it real quick. Good morning. You're on Connect with Me. How are you?
I'm fine. Let me just say, the two of you provide invaluable service to the Fresno area. John, by disseminating the information, and Todd, of course, by heading up the American Ambulance Service. But my question is, I was looking at the video of the chopper in the air. So Fresno County and its service provider, American Ambulance, is a good reflection. Overall, we have international visitors coming to the national parks. Sometimes they have mishaps. Sometimes they have to be med evac, and the responsibility falls upon American Ambulance. So I guess you could say your reputation is worldwide, Todd?
Well, in that regard, sure.
And you go up to Yosemite.
Well, we will, but they have their own service. Our service area is fairly broad throughout Central California, and our primary response is Fresno, Madera, Kings, and Tulare counties for air ambulance with Skylife. But we will go up into the parks as needed.
Yeah. You have, I'm going to go to the videotape again. Let's turn to the monitor one more time. I mentioned earlier you have 600 employees. You have 100 vehicles, all specially made by Mercedes. Let's go to the videotape and show each vehicle, from my understanding, cost roughly anywhere from $90,000 to $100,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So here are some of the vehicles.
That's without the equipment.
That's without the equipment.
Correct.
So if you add the equipment, that's probably another, what, $50,000?
About in that range, sure.
Yeah, so $150,000 per vehicle. Now, this is the shop where they repair the vehicles. Had a chance to go in there, too. So, and you have, these vehicles are actually parked at locations, 9 different locations around the county, right?
Well, we have nearly 9 rural stations, but
Right.
you
have 9 hubs, in other words.
Well, if you count all of our stations, we have nearly 30 if you count between Fresno and Kings County.
Okay.
And they're dynamically deployed, and that's to say, if we have an area that's uncovered, we may have several ambulances get up and relocate just to make sure that we can minimize our response times. So, for instance, if we have 2 units in South Fresno that are out on a call, we may take 2, 3, or 4 ambulances from North Fresno and redeploy them just to make sure we have the best coverage for the community.
Right. Your company, financially sound, good?
We are, but that doesn't mean that we don't face the same challenges everybody is facing in today's economy.
Right.
We collect about 30% of what we bill. If you consider...
You collect only 30%?
About 30% of what
you bill?
Sure. And if
what does that tell our viewers?
Well, our healthcare system is
broken.
Well, it is, as far as the economics of it. About 10% of our patients have private insurance.
And of course, the story within the last couple of years of picking up the same patient over and over again that's, that's really intoxicated or maybe has other problems. Sure. You remember that story too, obviously.
I do. I think you're referring to the one in the Fresno Bee. Where we had the term is frequent flyers, and John, I will tell you that the county's health department has addressed that issue in this community. I know we're out of time.
I know we are, sadly, and you're going to come back, aren't you?
If you'll have me.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. You're a great guest, and we appreciate the service, invaluable service that you provide for Fresno and Kings County. That's going to do it for us today. Hey, tomorrow, well, it's not Valentine's Day, but the day before, Athena's going to be here to give you some love advice. We'll see you tomorrow.
weeknights on MeTV.
Ta-da.
Who loves you, baby?
You shouldn't ask.
It's Kojak
Well, it sounds like music to my ear.
on MeTV.
Look at me.
Why do we love him?
Maybe it's the way I comb my hair.
Or maybe it's his trusty right-hand man.
More bite? Crocker! Crocker! Crocker!
Kojak!
Well, I just wanted to hear how it sounded.
Telly Savalas is Kojak.
Story of my life, baby.
Weeknights at 12:30, 11:30 Central on MeTV.
Who loves you?